3 kids movie sequels that I'm not sure anybody was clamoring for, but we've got them anyway. So let's talk about The Boss Baby, Family Business, Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, and Spirit Untamed. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It, and welcome to my review for 3 new kids movie sequels. We've got The Boss Baby, Family Business. You can see that on Peacock if you have a subscription to that service. Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, which is available currently only in theaters. No on-demand information for that yet. And then Spirit Untamed, which you can get on demand as well through all your normal channels of getting movies on demand. iTunes, Amazon Prime, what have you. But all 3 of these are still available in movie theaters as well if you want to check them out there. So like I said, I'm not sure any of these necessarily needed a sequel, but we've already got so many things in the world of Boss Baby and Spirit specifically in terms of television shows that follow the original film. I guess it kind of makes sense. Peter Rabbit 2 is sort of just starting out really as a franchise, but of course the character goes back, I don't know, maybe even 100+ years with the storybooks. But let's start with The Boss Baby. I think this is the most high-profile one. Peacock is really trying to get people to subscribe to their Peacock streaming service, and so offering this movie for free on that may entice some people, I don't know. But in this particular edition, the characters have aged up. We're now maybe 25, 30 years away from the original movie, but Ted, who is voiced by Alec Baldwin, he is a big shot CEO, and his brother Tim is James Marsden's voice, and he's just a stay-at-home dad trying to kind of juggle everything and, really thinking that his life is great. He feels like he's a good father, but his oldest daughter is starting to pull away from him. She's now becoming a teenager. And so he wonders what to do about that, how he can, connect with her on the way that he used to. So they both end up taking this magical formula that transforms them back into babies for 48 hours. And so they must join forces with Tim's secret agent baby daughter. Are you following this? And so they all have to go undercover to prevent an evil genius from turning fellow toddlers into these monstrous brats and sort of hypnotizing the adults. And so here we also get some voice work from Jeff Goldblum. He plays the head teacher at the school. And you've also got Eva Longoria along here. And Jimmy Kimmel is back, by the way, as Jimmy Kimmel and Lisa Kudrow back as the parents of Tim and Ted. Now, look, I saw the first Boss Baby when it first came out. I think that was 2017. I never watched the TV show that followed, which was called, I believe, Back in Business. And I think he was still a baby in that. So here, like I said, they aged them up a few decades, but then turned them back into babies so you can continue the Boss Baby conceit. I thought the first movie was, kind of fun for what it was. They were playing a little bit off the Glenn Glary, Glenn Ross thing with Alec Baldwin, cookies are for closers, that sort of thing. So it had like that kind of a hook to it. But here, the plot is just so convoluted. I don't know, why we needed to even do a sequel in the first place. However, we have it, and all right. It's okay. It's honestly not that far from the original. It kind of walks along that same type of line. There's some interesting, family value type messages here. I think maybe younger kids watching this won't quite relate to the whole teenage daughter thing, but if, they bring their older siblings along to the movie, I think, people in that sort of 11, 12, 13 age range may get some significance out of that. And like, oh, okay, my dad is really trying and whatever, and maybe I'm being a butthead to him or their mom or whatever. So, there's a couple of nice messages there. But other than that, this is more of just kind of a farce movie. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of, eye-popping animation. and the jokes are okay. I don't remember like belly laughing a ton in the first Boss Baby either. But here I think I made it through at least the first 20 or 25 minutes before I really laughed at anything. So the humor here, I think, is a bit lacking in that regard. The voice work is fine. You know, James Marsden, I feel like always does a pretty good job with everything. For Baldwin, I feel like the main reason he's doing these things are because he has small children at home now. I should say once again, because of course he had his kid with Kim Basinger 30 years ago. But now, you know, he's a new dad again. He's got all these youngsters, so makes sense for him to do this. But, you know, look, at the end of the day, the whole hook for this series is that Alec Baldwin is a baby, but he's doing his Alec Baldwin shtick as a boss. And it's like, you know, he doesn't change his voice at all. He just does the bit. And that's sort of the reason for the movie's existence in the first place. So parents will be like, oh, that's hilarious. You know, Alec Baldwin's doing a baby. You know, for me, it didn't quite come across that strongly. So I think it's probably just a hair under that first movie. The concept is fun in these movies in general, but boy, they really like I said, I mean, in this description, eight different things that would never happen have to happen in order for, you know, this movie to actually come together and make sense. I think it's a bit of a stretch overall. So I'm going to leave The Boss Baby Family Business with a C. So up next, we're going to talk about Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway. This is one that was long delayed. It was supposed to come out like shortly before COVID. I think they were trying to get it out for Easter last year, so April of 2020, and then obviously it was pushed off even longer than that. I think it came out the end of June or something like that. So now we have Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, and everybody is back. You have in-person performances from Rose Byrne and Domhnall Gleeson, and you have some voice performances from the likes of James Corden and Margot Robbie. And look, I really enjoyed the first movie, by the way, so I'll start there. I gave that a B+. I thought it was very funny, very tongue-in-cheek. And to be honest, I think we get a lot of the same from this second film. In fact, I think maybe a lot like the first one. It's been a few years since I've seen it, but I feel like a lot of the jokes were geared even more to the parents than they were the kids. There's like some cultural references the kids will certainly not get. I think kids will laugh the most sort of at just the hijinks of the rabbits. But in this one, we have Bea and Thomas, who are Rose Byrne and Domhnall Gleeson. They've come together. They get married at the beginning of this one. And them and the rabbits have created this sort of odd little family. But Peter can't seem to, you know, shake his mischief. And that's James Corden's character. So he ends up venturing out of the garden and finds himself in a world where mischief is appreciated. They all sort of go to this bookseller at the end of the first one, if you'll remember, or if you didn't see it, I'll fill you in. But Rose Byrne's character actually starts doing Peter Rabbit books, and they become these huge sellers. And so the rabbits become sort of a little bit famous. So anyway, in this edition, The Runaway, David Oyelowo is here in live action as a bookmaker, whatever, CEO of a book company, and he wants to put out more adventures of the Rabbit family. However, he wants it to be very Hollywoodized. He wants them to go into space. He wants them to do all these crazy things. And it's funny, I actually watched this right after Fast and Furious 9, where they actually do go to space. So it was kind of funny that they were poking fun at, like, well, that's ridiculous. Rabbits don't go to space. But here again, this one is another movie. Speaking of the F9 film, this is a movie about family with these rabbits. And really so is The Boss Baby, of course, too, in its own way. Actually, that one's a lot about family because they're the brothers and whatever. Both of these movies are a lot about family, and both better, I would say, than F9. But anyway, so I think this movie is just as funny as the first one. I really, really like a lot about the aesthetic of these movies. I love Rose Byrne and I love Domhnall Gleeson and their sort of their characters having different relations with Peter. Rose Byrne being very, cuddly and nurturing, and Domhnall Gleeson not a fan, but knowing that they're now a part of the family, really trying here, even though he does constantly blame everything on Peter's mischief. But there's a lot of jokes here that fly kind of, fast, and I don't think kids will get a ton of them. To be completely honest, I think they're put in there more for the adults, but I think that's okay. Because I think movies like this that aren't animated are going to bring more of the entire family out, and not just, okay, I'm going to plop my kid in front of the TV for 2 hours and let him watch this cartoon while I do the dishes or whatever. So I think it kind of makes sense to have, and when I say adult jokes, I don't mean, well, some of them I guess are a little naughty, but more of, the references and the fourth wall breaking and that sort of stuff. If anything, I think it's actually kind of a nice little light masterclass for children in some of the original aspects of comedy, because there's a lot of like pratfalls in this. It's a lot of comedy reminiscent of Looney Tunes, Marx Brothers, a lot of that really like 30s and 40s style of comedy that I think a lot of movie studios shy away from these days, because they want everything to be so eye-popping and fast and furious. And here, I don't think, we quite get that. I think it's a little bit, I don't want to say more tame necessarily, but I think it's a more classic way of presenting a family film. Yes, it's silly. Yes, it's got, some obviously believability issues. There's talking rabbits, etc. But at the end of the day, I think it's a more classic style of comedy that I personally really, really enjoy. And I don't usually like the animals that talk. It's one of my big issues. But there are movies that can do it well. I think Babe is a great example of that. And the first Peter Rabbit works very well in that regard too, as does this one. And the best part is, I'm not a huge James Corden fan, but when he's doing voice work, it's a little different because I don't have to see his dumb fat face. I hate his mug. And every time I have to see him in person doing something, it just makes me angry. But I do actually think he's kind of funny, but on that scale of like, all right, if I don't have to see him, if I can only hear him, that'd be great. He does a great job here as Peter. He really does. So I think there's a lot of good here. Again, because it's the second one, I'm not sure if it's quite as enjoyable as that original one where we're getting to know everybody. But there is something to be said for this one, because the Domhnall Gleeson character is kind of the villain or the enemy in the first one. And now that they're married, they focus on some other things, and we learn some valuable lessons here. Yes, we do. So I'm actually going to leave this one with the same grade as I gave the first one. I give Peter Rabbit to the Runaway a B+. Another enjoyable one. All right, so finally we have Spirit. Now, I have no history with the Spirit franchise. This is Spirit Untamed is the new one. But of course, it's, on the heels of the original Spirit, like nearly 20 years ago at this point. One of the first big DreamWorks animation films, I feel like. Like, maybe it doesn't go so far back as the Prince of Egypt, but it's kind of in that maybe around the first Shrek. I feel like they made it. But anyway, it's sort of gotten a whole new life lately. There's been, I think, 2 or 3 different shows, in this universe, in this franchise. So it makes sense that, yes, let's make another version of the movie. And, we'll call this one Spirit Untamed. So I went into this really with no expectations, because I am not familiar with, I know it's about a horse, but I was unfamiliar with the specifics of that first movie and stuff like that. So in this one, we have some voice work from a few people that I actually had a hard time recognizing. The father specifically, I was like, I definitely know that voice, but who is it? It was Jake Gyllenhaal as the father. Did not necessarily see that one coming. But you've also got Julianne Moore here, and some newcomers as well. McKenna Grace, who's been in a few different movies. I always remember her from a movie called Gifted, which I thought was really, really good. But yeah, there's a pretty good cast here with that. But the basic plot of this one is that little Lucky Prescott befriends this wild Mustang named Spirit, who shares her own spirit of not going with the crowd, being a bit of a rebel. And so here you have this classic story of the jerk wrangler who wants to capture Spirit and tame her his own way and all of this stuff. So Lucky and Spirit embark on a big adventure and meet some people on a train, and some things follow that. And of course, her parents have their own kind of thoughts about that. Look, I thought this was an okay film. It's sort of getting a drubbing from critics. I think it's like 45% or something on Rotten Tomatoes. But then if you look at the audience score, it's very high. It's 95%. So I think, kids that love these horse type movies and their parents, I think might enjoy this. For me, I thought it was okay. I thought the animation was a little bit less than I anticipated. DreamWorks doesn't have maybe the track record of like a Pixar or a Disney for, top notch animation, but in making this a CGI version, but trying to make it look 2D, I think, it sort of lost something there for me. So it wasn't quite as eye popping to look at as some of the other movies out there, especially, when you consider like Luca had just come out as well, and some of the things like that. But story wise, again, this is again, is every movie lately about family? I guess you could look at that in a number of ways. But here is another one. This horse is her family, and her own family is trying to get her, to sort of break ties with the horse, and this and that. So you get some family messages here as well. I think the downfall of this one for me maybe is the songs. There's at least 2 or 3 songs throughout the film, and they really drag down the pacing because none of them are particularly memorable. They're okay, but I certainly, didn't find myself humming them as I was leaving the theater. They're all right. But I think every time we have a song number, we definitely like drag down a little bit. And they're all lyric wise, they all have to do with the story, and they're sort of advancing the plot and whatever, or giving us basically a recap of the plot. All right. But they just weren't particularly engaging songs. So I didn't love that part. But there are some exciting sequences here. I mentioned the train earlier when they're, on the train and going for the train. There are some actually pretty well-directed animation action sequences. So I appreciated that. And look, a girl and her horse, this is a classic tale. And I think its target audience, which is presumably young girls, I think will get a lot out of this. And I think their parents maybe will reminisce about seeing the original Spirit when they were a bit younger, or something like that. And I guess if you're a fan of the TV show, you'll already kind of know what's going on. I don't know if these are new characters, to be honest, or not. I didn't really research it, but I thought this one was okay. I'm going to leave Spirit Untamed with a B-. So there you go. Kind of, short. When it's short and sweet, I just like to lump them all into one review. So there you have it. And there's a lot of movies coming out now that we're in sort of the summer. Not only the summer, but theaters are back every week. There's like 2 or 3 new movies at the theater. So in the next week or 2, we're going to have reviews of the new Escape Room, Tournament of Champions, the G.I. Joe movie, Snake Eyes. I'd like to try and see. Jungle Cruise is coming out. And there's a bunch that have popped up lately on streamers that I haven't gotten to yet either. So I'm going to take care of some of those coming up as well. So lots of content in the coming weeks on the channel. So keep that in mind. And please subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you aboard on Dan Reviews. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.